Good morning, everyone. I will try to say something in Portuguese, but I'm sure I'll make a mess of it. But bon dia, bon dias. It's lovely to be here. I would like to, first of all, congratulate Volvo and OHL Brazil on sponsoring this event. These are two private sector companies that care about this country. As J. Pedro has said, I've had a lot of experience in my own country and in many countries around the world, developed and developing. And it is a remarkable reality that is happening in your country. I mean that in a positive sense. Brazil is becoming... Thank you. Brazil is becoming a much larger part of the world economy, and that is tremendous news. Your road safety performance, on the other hand, is astonishingly bad, and you know that. And my challenge this morning in the 60 minutes or so I have is to try and give you some suggested ways, as J. Pedro has said, about how you can move forward and take advantage of the decade of action. And there are lots of things that can be done. What is remarkable is that so few of them are being done. It's a tragedy what's happening on the road system. As J. Pedro said, how do we shift the culture of the Brazilian community? How in goodness name do Brazilian families put up with this carnage on your road system? I don't know, and I'm conscious that I'm new to Brazil. I don't have the answers in detail, but I hope in the next few minutes to outline a way ahead that will give you confidence that this can be done, and it can be done. You can make a great difference quickly. It just needs political will. You've got the private sector here, front row, taking a strong position. Come on, Brazil. You need to do much better, and you have to push your political leaders to do this. This comment tends to upset people, but a society has the level of road safety it is comfortable with. If it isn't comfortable with it, it does something about it. Road safety is manageable. It's not some wish of God or some remote activity that happens to you. It's entirely manageable. Break it down into simple steps, plan to do something, then work together to do it. And it can be managed. And your rate of death has been remarkably stubborn in its refusal to reduce. Road safety in many developed countries has fallen substantially in many places in the last 20 years. It's not by accident, it's not by chance. It's because those countries took firm, thoughtful, evidence-based action. You've got to act to change this. 38,000 deaths, it's absolutely mind-boggling. 38,000 deaths and probably an estimated 400,000 injuries. And if we think that each road crash probably ripples out to about 100 family, friends and colleagues, that means something in the vicinity of 38 to 40 million Brazilians have some direct link with a road crash every year. If you look at crash rates per head of population, one way of comparing comparable activity, you can see that in my home state of Victoria, the rate is 5.2. It used to be much higher. It's 5.2 deaths per 100,000. In Santa Catarina state in Brazil, it's 32 deaths per 100,000. What in heaven's name is going on there? What's going on? Santa Catarina state in Brazil, it's 32 deaths per 100,000. What in heaven's name is going on there? What's going on? This is a management failure. Now, I don't enjoy delivering messages like this because you people are committed and want to make a difference, but these things have to be said. You are better than this. You are much better than this. The people here, the cars, I'm not sure about the motorbikes, I haven't looked at Sao Paulo yet, but they look the same. But why is there this massive difference in the level of death? And here's some figures showing fatalities per 100,000 population, fatalities per 10,000 vehicles. And Brazil again stands out with its level of death. Comparable to Thailand, and yet on a vehicle basis worse than Thailand. Argentina, where I have worked in recent years, is doing terrific things to improve its road safety. You can pick up the lessons from that country and adapt them to your own needs. It's not a good place. And the difference in your states from Bahia, I don't know if that pronunciation is correct, but Bahia to Santa Catarina, why is there this massive difference? Who is at fault and how? Is it the users? Is it the roads? Is it the vehicles? Is it management failure? And of course it's all of the above. You've got tremendous growth happening with your vehicle fleet. Economic growth brings a few challenges. Road safety, increased road death is one of those challenges. And you can see there that your automobile numbers are going up, your motorcycle numbers are certainly going up, and that isn't helping the overall level of death. But that just increases the urgency to do something. You've got a major problem with your 20 to 29-year-old young men. They're a high-risk group in every society, but they're certainly a high-risk group here. And there are good things going on. We should acknowledge the efforts of a forum like this and the people who are here today, and the efforts of GRSP, the Global Road Safety Partnership, operating in a number of Brazilian cities. There was a World Bank Management Capacity Review in Minas Gerais a couple of years ago, and of course the World Health Organization is supporting the RS10 or Bloomberg initiatives in a number of cities in Brazil. And I just make this comment at the bottom there. Road safety performance is a snapshot of the overall day-to-day life in a society. Road safety doesn't happen out there separate from the way we all live. It's part of our lives. And there's a strong message there implicit in that comment about how Brazil conducts its day-to-day affairs and its lives. I'll come back to that. This is the WHO Life in Traffic program, the Bloomberg-funded program, and as I say, there are a number of cities. I met a representative of that program yesterday, and there's some really good work going on to extract some reliable data. Without good data in the road safety business, we are flying blind. You need good data, and then you need to do something about it. I've talked about this, and I'm going to stress it throughout the morning as we go through. So here are the questions I want to put to you this morning. What do we mean by road safety? What do we really mean by road safety? What are the critical issues? What can we do to shift attitudes, change the culture, make it unacceptable for all those Brazilians to be killed every year? 100 Brazilians a day dying on the road network. It's remarkable. What are the things we can actually do in infrastructure, speed limits, vehicle safety, behavioural change measures to get that death toll down? And there's lots of things we can do. And then how do we select priorities? And then a question for you. What are each of you prepared to do as individuals to contribute to that journey? The Swedes, whom I admire tremendously in their road safety approaches, they every year get together a whole lot of stakeholders in their community, and they say to them, this is government does this, and it says to them, don't tell us what you want us to do, we'll have a separate process for that. But today we want to ask you to go away and come back in 2 weeks and tell us what you are prepared to do to improve road safety in Sweden. I think that's where Brazil has got to go. You've got to engage that whole community and say, we have to solve this together, but someone has to lead. Now, road safety means different things to each of us, I'd suggest, but it's the level of safety of travel on the network for all users. And You've got a problem, I want to look at more detail in that, and I want to look at the safe system. What does the safe system mean? Here's what's happening in Brazil, and you can see the major groups, the motorcyclists. You've got some automobile problems, of course, but then look at the pedestrian numbers. Quite incredible. A very large percentage of pedestrian deaths. This is a few years out of date. The motorcycles may have overtaken it now. I think it's 2005 or 6 data, but that's when you see large numbers of pedestrian deaths, it says one overwhelming thing. Traffic is travelling too fast. Traffic needs to slow down in cities, and there'll be other reasons as well. And the best way to get traffic to slow down is to fine people who exceed the speed limit. The safe system, I'm very optimistic about what it can do for every country, and particularly for Brazil. It's based on this OECD report that J. Pedro referred to, that many countries are involved in, the World Bank, WHO, FIA Foundation, and I had the opportunity to be involved in that. The Australian National Road Safety Strategy is built around safe system. Sweden's Vision Zero is essentially safe system, as is the Netherlands' sustainable safety. And Western Australia have a new strategy, a road safety strategy called Towards Zero, and of course the Decade of Action, the UN Decade of Action, the 50% reduction target is built around a safe system approach. So a safe system of road use, it's one where road users can't be killed or seriously injured on the network. Now we know that's a pipe dream in Brazil today, but this is an aspiration. And in road safety, if you don't have an aspiration for a major shift and improvement in the conditions on your network, it's highly unlikely you're going to make substantial progress. You must set some marker in the distance, perhaps 20, 30, 40 years, where you're going to eliminate death and serious injury. Countries like Sweden, for example, are doing that. Brazil is 18.9 deaths per 100,000. Sweden is 3.2 and going down. Lots of age groups in Sweden no longer are killed each year. 10 years ago, that was regarded as pie in the sky. It could not happen. Well, it is happening. And it is important to have the aspiration, because the aspiration shapes the interventions that you need to put in place. But essentially, human life and health are paramount. Individuals have a right to survive. Crashes are always going to happen. We don't want to stop crashes. It's too hard. But we just want them to be survivable. We don't want people killed or seriously injured in crashes. That's minimising that severity of injury. So road users shouldn't die because of system failings. It's accepted that about half of the deaths on road networks in the developed world are due to people behaving illegally. And that's a big problem here, I understand. But the other half are due to people making a simple mistake. A baby cries in the back seat, mum is distracted, finds herself on a gravel shoulder, overcorrecting and running into head-on traffic. Simple errors occur. We are human beings. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. We've accepted that in the workplace. We've accepted it in so many other areas, aviation, rail, maritime safety. We have to get it into our heads that the road system has to be made forgiving to cater for people being human beings. I'm not saying we can accept people breaking the law. I'm saying that when people unwittingly make a mistake, they shouldn't lose their life. It's a very big penalty to pay. And the driving force for that has got to be you guys. It's got to come from the public, that sense of make it safer for me and my family. I'll come back to that. So the safe system is new and it's different, and it's a framework for long-term elimination of serious casualties. But you've really got to change your thinking. And to those of you in road authorities, can I say to you, the challenge you face is probably the greatest. As a civil engineer, as a person who worked for many years in a road authority, you've really got to jettison the way you looked at safety in the past as some sort of add-on, and recognise that safety in all the products you produce, in all the road systems that you operate, has to have safety embedded totally within those operations. And it's a big journey. It's a very big journey. But there are lots of levers for action. So how will we do it? What are the important steps? Well, there's a busy but important diagram about safe system. The three big circles. The basic concept here is that in the centre circle, the human body has a certain tolerance to force. So in any crash, if the force exceeds a certain level, it's likely you'll be killed. Safe system says the combination of the speed of travel at the top, the vehicle safety features at the left bottom, and the road and roadside conditions on the right bottom, the three of those things in combination in any crash are such that you will not be killed. Now, yes, it's aspirational, but it leads to a whole host of practical measures that we need to put in place and that for some reason we've never really thought about as road users and indeed as system designers, people who provide the services that make up the road traffic system. Now, there's some important caveats in this, some important conditions. Firstly, we expect people to obey the law. Up here, we expect people to be alert and to be compliant with the law. Now, I've only been in Brazil a little over 24 hours, but already I've been in a car travelling at 120 kilometres an hour in an 80 kilometre an hour speed zone. Now, there aren't too many countries that I've worked in where I could say that actually happens. So come on, guys, you've got a big challenge here. You've got to change some fundamental settings in your society. Then you've got these other support acts, I call them, around the side here. The admittance to the system, your licensing system. How good is your licensing system? Are your young people really ready to go out on that road network when they get a licence? The 20 to 29-year-old figures I showed before would indicate they're not. Emergency medical treatment. I'm sure you've got good medical treatment, but how good are your ambulance systems? How much continuous improvement goes on there to improve it each week? This is about educating the public, and it's a real weakness. The road safety community gets very exercised about what needs to happen. I'm speaking internationally, but is very poor at saying to the public in straightforward terms, here's what we need to do and why. And it can be controversial, usually is, but we have to get better at that, and you have to really target in on that issue. You've got to let the Brazilian public know that more is needed to be done. Here's what we can do. We know it's controversial, but here's why it will work. You've got to have good legislation, of course, very good legislation. I understand your traffic code is in fact a very good code, but are your police adequately resourced? Have you got enough police? Are they able to do what's needed? Are they backed up by the courts? And is public opinion right behind them? I don't know. And then this is understanding your crashes. There are only about 4 crashes that kill people, 4 types. Pedestrians being killed, head-on crashes, big problem I know here in Brazil, run-off road crashes, hitting a pole or a tree, very dangerous crash type, and side impact crashes at intersections, a very big problem in urban areas. I think also that's a problem here. But there's only 4 major crash types. There are some others, but they're smaller in extent for serious injuries. 4 major crash types. Think about those 4 major crash types and think about what could be done to bring them within a safe system environment. That's the journey I want to take you on in the next 15 minutes. And here's something about your crashes drawn from some data, I think, on federal roads. You've got head-on collisions on your 2-lane roads, head-on collisions and pedestrian collisions. What's remarkable is that on your 4-lane roads, you've got such a high proportion of fatalities that are pedestrians on the 4-lane roads. I don't understand that. I don't know what's happening there, and it would warrant I'm sure some people in this room know what's causing that, but it's a concern. Then again, on the multi-lane roads, pedestrians are 40% of deaths. That's very unusual. Pedestrians you would expect to be an urban street, pedestrian fatalities you would expect to be predominantly an urban street phenomenon. This appears to be urban freeways or multi-lane roads that are the problem. I don't know. So, understanding the safe system concept and the way those elements interact, it's very important that we understand how those big circles interact with each other. They're important in their own right, but how they operate with each other is very, very important. You're in a car, you come to a curve in a road, a car perhaps 5 years old, certainly not a Volvo, may tend to go off the road. A modern car with electronic stability control would not go off the road. If you hit a tree or a pole, in any event, with a side impact crash, head protecting curtain airbags would reduce your risk of death and serious injury. These are the measures that, and if the road shoulders or the gravel sides on the road were hard surfaced, your chances of skidding would be much reduced. You'd have a chance to recover, and rumble strip markings that would tell you're running off the road would give you further protection. It is the combination of all those factors that gives you a leap far beyond each of them individually. And that's why developed countries are doing very, very well, because they're doing these things in concert. Another example, intersections. If I'm in an intersection and the speed limits are 50 kilometres an hour or less, if I'm hit by a car on the right-hand side at that speed, I'll probably survive. If I'm in a good car, good side impact protection, head protecting curtain airbags. But if we built a roundabout there as well, as the French are doing, the Swedes are building roundabouts, hundreds of roundabouts a year. The French have got them everywhere. The British have got them everywhere for good reason. At roundabouts you'll get more crashes, but they won't be severe outcomes because the traffic is travelling slower and the collisions are not at right angles, they're slightly oblique. And these factors make enormous differences, but they fly in the face of popular understanding. That's why we have to tell the public all about this. I've talked about biomechanical tolerance limits, the forces the human body can withstand, and the fact that we need to focus on injuries and not crashes. So, in making the system safe, we need to recognise how unsafe it is at present. And here's a few examples. Generally, as a community, we have a very permissive attitude to speeding. We accept some drivers will have alcohol in their system, even below legal limits, although your limit is low. We accept driver fatigue as a day-to-day reality. We place convenience above safety in travel. If we turn to what the authorities do that cause all sorts of problems with road safety settings, no one speaks up naturally for safety. It gets squeezed out all the time in the debates. But look at these things. No graduation of novice driver exposure to risk as they gain experience. Young people get a licence at 18, they're out there, they're on their own. We know that in the first year of driving, they're 3 times more likely to be killed than subsequent years. There's an opportunity to do something about graduating their exposure to risk. We permit too low a licensing age in many countries. Fortunately, I gather it's 18 here, but in some countries it's 16. Road authorities have prioritised mobility over safety. We'll get you from Sao Paulo to Rio quite fast, and we'll try and make it as safe as we can. The sensible, safe approach is to say we'll get you from Sao Paulo to Rio safely, and we'll do it as quickly as we can without compromising safety. Big shift, big shift. Permitting inappropriate travel speeds for the safety characteristics of the length of road. I don't know your road system, but I'm sure you've got similar speed limits for very different qualities of roads. That's true in every country. That's to really sell the public short in terms of speed limits for very different qualities of roads. That's true in every country. That's to really sell the public short in terms of giving them some consistency of risk. We need to do much more there. We permit land use development without considering the offsetting the negative safety impacts on the adjacent network. I know you've had a lot of development around Brasilia. There's some enormous tower thing out on the horizon I saw yesterday. I can't think of the name of the place, but has that been planned? Are there proper safety mechanisms there for pedestrians and for vehicles? And if not, why not? Why not? You guys own this country, it's your country. You should be setting the rules to ensure safety is not compromised. I've got a lot of these examples here, and I won't go through them all this morning, time doesn't permit it. This presentation will be on the net, available on the internet for you, and you can look at these things at your leisure if you so wish. But buses, I know Buenos Aires, buses just rampage around Buenos Aires, killing pedestrians, and no one seems to, 2 years ago, no one seemed to be able to do much about it. Buses and vehicles must travel slowly in high pedestrian areas. Are your new vehicles that you're getting produced in Brazil meeting 4 or 5 star, preferably, new car assessment program ratings? The Euro NCAP programs, companies like Volvo have been at the forefront of this safety development of vehicles. It really matters. If you have a head-on crash and you're in a 5-star NCAP car at, say, 70 kilometres an hour, you may well survive. 4 stars you may not. 2 and 3 stars you probably won't. And these things matter. We need to tell the public about it. There are many things I could talk about there. Failing to support safety programs when some interest group lobbies against it. Safety is easily squeezed out because it's abstract, it's not owned by an individual, and it falls victim to special interest lobbying for some other purpose. I've seen it so many times. You need to be alert to this. The community interest should be served, and it often isn't. That last one, in Australia we metricated our systems of measurement in about 1975 and moved to metric systems. In changing our speed limits, they were 35 miles an hour, which was 56 kilometres an hour. We could have gone to 50. We chose to go up to 60. And it's been calculated that's cost about the lives of 3,000 pedestrians since then. That one bureaucratic decision has cost all of those lives. And not one of those people who were killed ever had any say in that decision. So there's something seriously wrong with a lot of our safety approaches. I won't go through these in detail. Just to finish with employers. Good employers, of course, would provide staff with really safe vehicles for travel, safe new car assessment program rating, 5-star cars. They'd take account of work practices and ensure they didn't require fatigue to be endured to get from A to B, particularly in the freight industry. And companies that expect staff to take and make phone calls, even hands-free while they're driving, is really, the research is quite clear. It's unsafe, it shouldn't happen. So, safety squeezed out by economic interest, inconvenience, inattention. The impacts often fall on the vulnerable, the young, the old, the marginalised. And we're all conditioned by our background and environment. Growing up, a lot of people grow up in country areas where they have to travel a lot, and death on the roads is almost an accepted part of life. We need to get over that quickly. So that's a little discussion about what we mean by road safety. And I want to talk now about what are the critical issues as I see them. Road safety is distributed, it's complex, it's reliant on a lot of whole-of-government activity and community partnership actions. It's what I call a case study in difficulty. But the progress made in road safety is a measure of the competence of a society, and that's my assertion. There aren't too many well-functioning, socially equitable societies on this planet that have poor road safety records. You have to think about the road safety management systems, that's within government in particular, and the capacities of the people working there. It's crucial. What are the standards of governance in a society, and how good is your crash data? Is it comprehensive? Can you measure what's happening? And this is really a piece of work out of the OECD. It's saying that the top level results, everybody focuses on getting road safety results. That's fine. We need to set targets to do that. In the middle are the things we all think about that we need to do to get those results. But what doesn't get much focus is this stuff down here, the bottom layer of that triangle. All of the management functions that are crucial to making complex policy decision-making activity like road safety work across government. And I've been involved in this for many years in my home country. And it's almost as simple as 3 or 4 chief executives and the head of police getting together 3 or 4 times a year around a table and saying, what is our plan? If I do this, will you do that? I'll find some money to assist that, and let's all go to our ministers and get the government to agree to it. It doesn't need to be hideously complex. It needs to be focused. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but management of road safety, getting the arrangements in place, is what Brazil obviously doesn't have at the moment and what you need to do. Get your management arrangements sorted out. You've got good people. You just need to give them some authority to work together and say to government, to get 3 ministers in a room and say to those ministers, this is what we need to do. And it's very hard for 3 ministers to ignore 3 or 4 senior public servants. The trick is to get those public servants to the place where they're prepared to make that advocacy. And they're the little, they're the separate headings, if you like, yes, that run down that in the bottom layer. Is there a results focus? That's all about having a safety performance framework. Do we know where we're going? Are we measuring what we're doing? And did we get there? And you're going to hear this afternoon from Per and the work he's done in Spain. And if that doesn't inspire you in terms of having a plan, having a target, measuring what you've done, nothing will. It's a great story. Coordination between agencies, I've talked about that. Legislation, I understand your traffic code is not too bad. Funding and resource allocation. Road safety costs money. The best way to get money into road safety is to get your injury insurers to fund investment. And we were successful in getting $1 billion over 10 years into infrastructure safety investment in my home state of Victoria from our Transport Accident Commission. Why? Not because they wanted to be good citizens, but because we demonstrated a business case in which they got a better return on their money for putting in wire rope barriers on the sides of roads and the centre of roads than putting it into any other investment. This is a big opportunity. You have private sector insurers here, but you can work with them, I believe, to come up with very interesting opportunities that will appeal to them. Promotion, yes, promotion to the public, but particularly promotion to government, to the ministers, as I talked about before. Advocacy within government, managing up. It really matters in a difficult policy area like road safety. There's a saying that if you're 1 step ahead of the public, you're showing some leadership. If you're 3 steps ahead, you're a martyr. And I think that's right. You can't get too far ahead of the public, but as a road safety practitioner, you must be out there ahead of the public, pushing always for further measures to improve the situation. Monitoring and evaluation I've talked about. Research and development, knowledge transfer, crucial. Much of what to do is relatively obvious, I'd suggest. Some isn't. Some important things aren't too obvious. But how to put these things in place is difficult. You need a group of people to work together, and you need strong political support. The broader context for road safety. I just had a look at talking about road safety and other social indicators. Transparency International is an anti-corruption watchdog that publishes anti-corruption characteristics of countries around the world. I looked at their website recently, and I compared corruption rankings. These are the better performers in terms of not being corrupt as governments and as countries, and compared it to their road safety performance. And what was interesting with these 32 I just picked out is that of those top 32 transparent countries, something like 22 or 23 of the top road safety performers sit within that group. So we're talking here about fundamental issues in a society. I don't want to take any further than that, but you can see what I'm suggesting to you. So how can Brazil strengthen its road safety management arrangements at national, state and local levels, and what are they at present? The states are very important for you. In Australia, they drive road safety. You have a competitive dynamic between states. People always want to be the better state. We learn from each other. We swap ideas. We meet regularly. The senior managers meet 2 or 3 times a year to swap ideas. I think that's important for Brazil. You've obviously got some states that are doing better than others. Work with your states to see if you can get some greater momentum operating, and then push the federal government to play its part, because I realise your legislation is federal. But we need road safety management arrangements focused on outcomes, not for the sake of it, but what do we want to achieve? Good integrated government decision making, and there's a lot of discussion needed there to bring the justice people along, and to bring the public transport people along, and the land use planning people along. This is not a picnic. You need good knowledge transfer strategies for government and the community. Active influencers. You've all got to become active influencers. Understand what will really make a difference and go out and push it. I talked about funding, and you do need a robust safety performance framework. Integrated government decision making. This is a simple little graphic of a system that works pretty well in a lot of places. Don't make your road safety decision making too complex or too multi-layered. In my view, what you really need, here are your ministers up here, the key ministers, meeting perhaps 2 or 3 times a year. Here are your chief executives, police, roads, education, health, perhaps cities, I think in this context, and they're supported by their managers. Now, these people, they make the bullets, and they work with ministers and meet with ministers to actually get decisions. That system has proven to be very, very effective. It's not complex, but it's very effective. 3 or 4 voices in a cabinet meeting speaking about the same issues in the same way is pretty powerful. You do need a parliamentary road safety committee, a bipartisan parliamentary committee of parliamentarians to ventilate difficult issues. It's been a proven successful method in the past in other countries. Public inquiries, public reports, public responses and so on. And then you have your all-important technical groups, research groups and consultation with stakeholders and local government. But we need to separate consultation from decision making. Yes, you need consultation, but you certainly need decision making. And the smaller the number of groups around the table for any decision to be made, the better, isn't it? So try and keep your decision making groups quite small. You need good knowledge transfer arrangements. The senior bureaucrats are crucial here. They are what I call the gatekeepers. Make sure they know these facts and can represent the arguments at the highest level. And in many cases you'll find they'll be found wanting. Work out a strategy to fix that. I've talked a bit about funding and insurers. You need monitoring and evaluation and R&D. What can we do to shift overall attitudes? Well, promote the safe system concept of shared responsibility. It's not all the road users' fault. The road providers, the vehicle manufacturers, I'll talk about the system designers, they have a responsibility as well. You've got 2 classic examples sponsoring this forum. They're playing their part, but there are others who are not here, who are not playing their part. Promote the benefits of redesigning your system over the next 30, 40 years to make crashes survivable, to eliminate death. And inform and achieve acceptance by practitioners, senior bureaucrats, ministers and the public of this thinking. Get the thinking out there about how you just can't blame the road user. I think they're a big problem in Brazil, the road user, but you can't blame them entirely for the problem. The problems are much broader than that. And the road users why are the road users doing illegal things? people, in my experience, on the road network, a percentage of them tend to behave like children. If they think they can get away with illegal behaviours, they'll do it. So shared responsibility, there's this concept of system managers and designers. They provide the roads, they provide vehicles, they set speed limits, they make the road rules, they decide land use planning, they use the network, that's the road user. They supply for contracts for supply of transport services. How many Brazilian companies say to their transport company providing their logistics, we'll only use you if you have a safety policy. System designers enforce compliance. They employ drivers, of course. They operate the emergency health system. They are in the injury insurance business. They take decisions. They operate professional bodies that set expectations, and they do more. So we have to redesign the system to make crashes survivable, and that means this new philosophy has to be introduced. Our speed limits have to reflect biomechanical realities, and we need an integrated, safe traffic model. Now, this little graphic is in because I think if there's one thing you go away from this forum today and have in your back pocket, this would be it. What it's saying is this is your risk of death up on this axis here. This is the risk of being killed from 0 to 100. As a pedestrian, at about 30 kilometres an hour, your risk of being killed if you're hit by a car goes up dramatically. Below 30, it's not too bad. A side impact crash above 50 kilometres an hour, the same thing. Head-on crash above 70 kilometres an hour, you'll probably be killed. So what does that tell you about speed limits on sections of the network? How do we have two-lane, two-way roads that would allow 100 kilometres an hour of travel? How do we have major intersections where you can travel through at 70 kilometres an hour? This thinking needs to be more widely understood, and it makes the task then of bringing change about much more simple. And there are ways of not having to travel slowly. You engineer the road network to take the risk out. And a median barrier down the centre of a two-lane, two-way road is a good example. You can travel faster then. You don't have the head-on crash risk. And that's basically what I've just talked of. I want to spend a moment just on speed. Speed is the great pathogen in road safety. It's the thing that kills us, actually. If you think about it, if you run into someone else at 10 or 15 or 20 kilometres an hour, it's probably okay. But the kinetic energy that ramps up so quickly is devastating in terms of its effect on the human body. And this is it's a busy slide, but it's basically saying, this is international research, it's saying for a 1% increase in mean speeds of travel, 1%. So in a 60 kilometre an hour, in a 100 kilometre an hour road, if the traffic goes from travelling at 100 kilometres an hour average speed to 101 kilometres an hour average speed, deaths will go up by 4%, 4 to 5%. Now, I think that's an amazing reality. That's an incredible figure. And no one understands that. And most people, when they get to think about it, if they ever do, find it difficult to comprehend. 1 kilometre an hour extra speed of travel by traffic, 4 to 5% increase in deaths on that road. Any road, anywhere in the world. All other things being equal. If you're driving the same cars, you've got the same roadside treatments. So what does that tell us about the importance of speed management? It tells us a lot, doesn't it? How important it is in this whole equation. And why it's vital that the police are out there enforcing speed limits. Enforcing them day in, day out, every opportunity they have. This is just, I won't dwell on this, but it's some work that was done in the UK by the Transport Research Laboratories, and they went out and measured the crash risk on sections of 100 kilometre an hour rural road. And they put those sections into groupings, as you see there, curves, if you like, of different risk roads. What it's saying is, roads are not the same. And those roads have the same crash rate on the left-hand axis for very different travel speeds. Or put another way, for the same travel speed, those roads have the same crash rate on the left-hand axis for very different travel speeds. Or put another way, for the same travel speed, there are very different crash rates. That thinking is not understood at all by the public. And I raised it today because it's an example of the sort of thing we need to understand, we need to explain to our politicians and need to get across to our community. Think about using demonstration projects. I'm sure you do this now, but it's a very, very nice way to implement something innovative and something new, less threatening. Build road user compliance culture. How do we get Brazilian people to say, I don't want to be unsafe, I'm going to adhere to what the community expects? Well, there's a lot of stuff involved in this. It's called deterrence, and I don't know how that'll translate, but it's legislation, enforcement, it's support of courts, it's data system linkage, it's public information about benefits. And the societies that have good road safety have excellent deterrence compliance arrangements. Building demand for road safety, getting out to the community and encouraging the community about vehicle safety, road safety, legislative safety, getting them to take up the arguments publicly in the media with their politicians to argue for change. And better management of road network operation, promoting those safety benefits of safer infrastructure, better vehicle safety limits, better traffic management and so on. And so Brazil, I'd suggest, needs to build an appetite to embrace change, to have aspiration, to do the top-down things but also the bottom-up things. You need both. You can't entirely do it top-down. That's why local government and state government are crucial here. Further develop a sense of crisis. You have got a crisis on your hands. Your road toll, I'm sure, is a national embarrassment. If it's not, it should be. It's undermining your rightful position in the world, in my view. Or it's threatening to do that. And you need to build the community knowledge of what can be done, act on how to achieve change. Yeah, the what is important, but that's an intellectual exercise. How to achieve those changes is where the effort needs to go. Performance, encourage accountability. I think that's difficult to translate too, I'm told, accountability. But it's about giving people roles and responsibilities and measuring how well they do it. None of us go out and enjoy that in being measured and held accountable. But unless you do it in road safety, you won't deliver. So the traffic safety culture in Brazil, why is it as it is? There's often debate when we impose regulations on road users. Some people say, I want my individual freedoms. It's a strong argument in many states in the United States, for example. But there are community obligations when you use a public space, which the roadways are. And remember that the motorist behaving unsafely is threatening not only his or her life, but it's threatening the life of others. You, your family. It's threatening the lives of other people in that vehicle. And even if it's just their life that's lost, it costs the community a vast amount of money. So community interest versus personal interest needs to be promoted. Mature societies respect community interest over personal interest. What can we do to reduce serious crashes? Very quickly, I'm running out of time. We can do a lot of things, and I won't dwell on these, but there are many things that can be done, many actions. IRAP, the International Road Assessment Program, active in a lot of countries, a non-government organisation in the UK. Brazil ought to have IRAP operating here, assessing your road network, and it may be possible for the toll road company to look at something for itself. But this tells you what the risk is on your road network, and it tells you what you need to fix it and how much it'll cost by measure. And I reckon if you spent $5 billion a year on fixing up the safety of a lot of your network, you'd save about 250 lives per annum. So by year 10, you'd be saving 2,500 lives per annum. And things like 2+1 barriers, 2 lanes one way, 1 lane the other with a barrier down the centre. Pioneered in Sweden, but widespread now around the world. Wire rope barrier, it's cost effective, a much less expensive way of getting improved safety and some improved capacity than duplication of networks. And there are lots of things we've done. Roundabouts and so on will improve safety. New roads, probably the sort of investment that Brazil is will undertake. There's probably 500 lives a year by year 10 that you'll have as a benefit from that. These are very conservative estimates, I might say. They're based on work in Australia and New Zealand that I've done in depth. And I'd be happy to talk to people later about how they've been quantified. Speed limits. If you lowered 100k speed limits to 90, we talked about that would reduce mean speeds probably by 4 to 5 kilometres an hour. Say you did that on 30% of your network tomorrow. The estimate is you'd save 1,700 lives a year, and probably much more. I'm not talking about compliance, I'm just talking about the speed limits. But speed management is at the centre of developing a safe road system. Safer vehicles, fantastic stuff happening here. People in this audience can talk about it to a far greater extent than I can. I've been to Volvo many times. Volvo are unbelievably world-leading in this regard. I'm not being paid to say this. I have to say to you that they are remarkable, and I've seen the sort of... Volvo is saying that by 2020, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Roger, by 2020, no one in a Volvo will be killed in a car crash or seriously injured, and no pedestrian will be killed by a Volvo. That's the private sector, I think, saying to governments, lift your game. And that's relevant for this meeting today. But 5,000 lives a year will be saved by safer vehicles by year 10, and that is very conservative in my view. If we look at drink driving, Brazil should be testing about, well, at least half your drivers each year. That's 30 million random breath tests a year. I don't know how many tests you have at the moment, but I bet if you had 30 million, you'd probably save many more than 3,000 lives a year. Australia had a very big problem with drink driving, went into random breath testing in a massive way. Our breath testing frequency now is 1 test per driver per year. I spoke to people last night who'd never been tested. In fact, they said to me, I don't drink. That doesn't mean you're not tested. Everyone's tested in random breath testing. Licence tests after 120 hours practice, the novice driver risk issue. If young people had to get 120 hours of supervised practice, the research internationally shows they're 40% less likely to be killed than kids who've only had 30 hours practice, which is the norm. That's 400 lives a year. A 4-year probationary period with restrictions and zero BAC, 350 lives a year is an estimate. These are very conservative estimates, I hasten to repeat. And then speed compliance. I'd like to revise this upwards after the little I've seen and heard, but I think if you had covert mobile speed cameras around Brazil, in addition to what you're doing at the moment. I noticed this driver the other day, he would slow down. We got near the speed cameras on the road system. He'd speed, slow down, speed up, slow down. It's a game. That's what we call the sporting model. It's the sporting model, where it's a bit of a game. This is no game. There's 38,000 Brazilians getting killed every year. If you went out and actually started to press the button on speed enforcement and listen to our guest speaker this afternoon about this, you'd make a big difference. I've said 3,500 lives, that's very conservative. Great benefits are coming from vehicle technology that will soon prevent anyone who's been drinking from starting a car, that will one day, the technology's there now, but it's a matter of public acceptance, will voluntarily allow you to set speed limits in your car and the car won't exceed them. Within 20 years it's likely to be mandatory, so speeding will become pretty much a thing of the past. Lane departure warnings in cars to prevent you running off the road, that's available now, and there's a whole lot of other things like the safe car thing again that Volvo promote, where it will brake automatically and take over prior to the crash. I've talked about injury insurance, put some pressure on your injury insurers to do something. It is all about accountability. What are the priorities for action? Well, I've talked about some of the things you might do, but it's getting that partnership to work that's really important. Press it at local government level, press it at state level, see what you can do at federal level. Promote the sense of crisis, get the management of road safety right at all levels. You won't do that overnight, but don't overcomplicate it. Pick out the 3 or 4 key bureaucrats and say to them, we want you, we expect you to lead on this, and to go to your politicians and put them in a position where they have to not take your advice if they're going to stand on the sidelines. And most politicians don't like ignoring advice from their bureaucrats. Build awareness by the public, get government support for legislation and for funding, implement the key evidence-based measures that I've outlined, and consider your own personal commitment. So what are you prepared to do as individuals? Advocating change in your workplace with your friends, getting in there and promoting vehicle safety information and how important it is. I don't know of a mother in Australia a young mum in Australia who hasn't been very focused on star ratings of vehicles and insisting that when Dad goes and buys a new car, that car has 5 stars safety. Mum's worried about the kids. This is a good thing. Give the Brazilian mums that information. Help them to take those decisions, and the dads as well. Senior officers, if you're a senior government officer, get into the change management business. That's the business you're in if you're in road safety. And build confidence with your politicians that these changes that you're arguing can be politically managed. Have a strategy. Don't go into a politician and say, we need to do this because here's the benefits, and I'll leave you to sort out how it's going to be managed politically. You need a strategy for that as well. It's often the time frame for implementation. It's often some demonstration projects. It's often discussions with the public, a discussion paper being published, ventilating issues to let people get used to the idea. Seek other partners, ensure your outcomes are measured, don't be fearful of being measured. Those things I've talked about earlier, if you do them, they will work. And it is so powerful when a group of you get together and you do a few things and they work. And you think, my goodness me, how many deaths have happened because we didn't act sooner? And that's my summary of what would happen with the measures I suggested. You'd reduce deaths by about 13,500 a year in year 10. You'd save about 85,000 lives between now and year 10 in aggregate. And these are conservative figures. You can actually do better than this. Help your community to come out of the dark. Drive innovation and manage upwards. And a couple of quotes to finish. Next to creating a human being, the finest thing a man can do is to save one, Abraham Lincoln. And policymakers can make the traffic system as safe as they want to. The road crash problem is man-made and can be remedied. Obrigado.
Como eu havia prevenido, ele tem muito a dizer e nós temos muito que discutir. Acho que o aconselhamento, a orientação, os pontos essenciais da palestra do Eric Howard certamente devem balançar um pouco no nosso jeito de pensar brasileiro, na maneira como nós vemos o nosso trânsito e, principalmente, nos desafios que temos pela frente para fazer do nosso trânsito algo à altura da importância que o país tem no contexto internacional. Acho que os conselhos são bons. Nós vamos ter a oportunidade agora de explorar mais esses pontos que o Eric mencionou. Ainda tem mais alguma coisa que ele pode mostrar. Nós vamos parar por meia hora para o café. Se fizermos, inclusive, um pouco mais curto, ainda melhor, porque vamos ter oportunidade depois de explorar, como disse, os conhecimentos do Eric